The organized leaders always have the vested interest to make people believe whatever their dogma is, because that's how they get the following. But that's getting harder and harder to do as people know more about science and see the challenges. So this is kind of the context. And my belief is that in Sikhi, if practiced properly, if we actually look at it the way Bruce presented it, there does not need to be that kind of challenge or conflict, or at least not to that degree. And I'm going to get into each of these in separate slides, so these are some of the issues I'll be covering. Sikhi encourages rational reasoning and common sense. There is no creation myth or cosmology from in the Guru Granth Sahib or in Sikhi that has to compete with what science discovers. And miracles are not an essential part of Sikhi. You don't have to believe in miracles to be about Sikh. And we don't have this is an important part too, we don't have an organized church or central authority who can dictate what the religious dogma is. So each of us has to try to understand Sikhi by studying Gurbani. You have to use your own common sense and seek the answers yourself to some extent. Of course, you look to others to explain it to you, look to people who are more learned and so on, but ultimately it's your own responsibility. So let's look at each of these a little bit one at a time. And I'd like to make this more interactive, so feel free to make your own thoughts or suggestions or additions to these. So the gurus often appeal to common sense and actually encouraged rational thinking. They pointed out logical inconsistencies with rituals, with superstitions, and actually tried to make people think. And we have this, so many popular sakhis about Guru Nanak Dev Ji, like the one at Haridwar, you all probably heard about it, where he saw all these people doing their ritual in the water, where they were throwing water towards the east. It was to the sun god, it was also supposed to reach their forefathers. So of course, as you know, he went in there and he started throwing water in the other direction. And when people asked him what the hell he was up to, he said, well, if the water you are sending can reach your forefathers in the other world, and to the sun that's so far away, my fields in Punjab are only a couple of 100 miles away, so why can't this water reach them? So he's basically asking them a question to show the logical inconsistency of the rituals and making them think and saying, what's the rational idea here? So that was a part of his his approach towards preaching. He's not saying, here's a set of rules, believe them blindly. He's saying, think about it, it doesn't make any sense. And there are many other sakhis like that. Maybe somebody else can mention one or two, where the gurus did this kind of thing as a way of teaching people. There's the one of Guru Nanak with Duni Chand. You probably know that he was a very wealthy person. Came to Guru Nanak. He was very devoted. Here's a needle. You really want to? He said, show me the way to salvation. Please help me. He asked him. So the Guru gave him a little needle and says, okay, you do this. You take it and keep it for me, and give it back to me in the next life. So he went home, and his wife said, how are you going to do that? The needle's not going to go with you. Now, this guy was a millionaire. It's said that he had a lot of flags up on his house, and he used to put one up every time he got another lakh in his net assets. A lakh in those days was like billions these days. So basically, Guruji was giving him this message that, what's the point of all this, all this worldly wealth? It's not going to go with you to the next world, but this was a very practical way of making him think about it and question things, and show the logical ridiculousness of the life that he was leading. So the Guru was actually trying to again make people start thinking about things.
I just want to go back. You said that if anybody remember on the afterword. So Asaki Wat has a very good example on that. Je Mohaka Karmu hai, Karma Pitri de. Maybe you can cite that example for everybody. So that's afterword there. What Guru Sahib is saying that Je Mohaka Karmu hai, Karma Pitri de. Agge Vasyani Pitri Jod Kare. What Guru Sahib is saying, let's assume you and I, we are standing right next to each other, okay? And my father died, and supposing your father also died, and assume that both of them are in the heaven, okay? They're next to each other. And if I deceived somebody and I made some money, and I took that money, I bought some gifts and gave it to a pandit, and assuming that the Pandit is going to make it go back to my father.
It was called a shroud or something.
A shroud वगैरह. So Je muhaka means on that guy a thief, robber. Je muhaka karmu है चोरी करके फिर कहते हैं if you give it to somebody pitri चोर करे. Now that part which is given to him is gone back to my father. Let's assume that. Yeah, good people are saying that. He's going to go help him over there. Now he goes in there and he starts using that part. And he goes there and the person from whom he robbed this part, he meets him up there. So then again, what happens is now, I stole from you, gave it to him, and went up there, and he faces the father of the person from whom he was robbed. So again, your father becomes a robber now.
So you're saying, follow your logic and see what
Look at your own logic, you know. If this happens, what is happening here? Look at it, this is Asaki War, Sarwa Chakka. And that's what the Guru Sahib is talking about. Afterward, you want to really understand that. So you have to really, not to rely on these type of things. Be a good person.
I missed the point of the story, Vichi. So you steal from someone and then how does your father become the person?
He says if you really believe that sending things will go really to your parents, if all this applies there, and as he's saying, if your wealth you are getting is done by stealing, then he'll also become. If your logic works, then he'll also become. So don't believe that this happens.
Yes, except this line, Pitri hoi udhar, jado tusi naam japte ho tade ancestors da bhi udhar. That is true. So the good deeds that you do are visible.
ਇਹਦੇ ਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉਹ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਤਾ ਮਾਤਾ ਦੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ। ਪਰ ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਜੇ ਮੁਹਾਕਾ ਕਾਨੂੰ ਹੈ, ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਆਸਾ ਹੀ ਵਾਰ ਸੁਣੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ we have to read contemplate on these type of things. ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਬੜਾ ਕੁਝ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ, 17ਵੇਂ ਸ਼ਕੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਜੇ ਮੁਹਾਕਾ ਕਰਮੂ ਹੈ ਘਰ में ਪਿਤਰੀ ਦੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਸਤ ਸਿਆਣੀ ਹੈ ਪਿਤਰੀ ਚੋਰ ਕਰੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਪਿਤਰ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ forefather become the ਚੋਰ ਉਹ thief ਉਹ ਬਣ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ क्योंकि देखिए वो चोर बन गए. This is what you are really doing. So ਦੱਸਦੇ ਪਏ ਨੇ you should really, if you want to really give to somebody, you should earn with the honest means.
In the Jaggi Sahib also there is
तबले ऊपर केता पार.
धरती और परे और इससे पार
that one. Tola
No, that's the same.
Same hall.
So the first part is Guru
ये पंच प्रमाण 16वीं पौड़ी है. पंच प्रमाण पंच प्रधान पंचे पावन जे सोईंदा राज पंच जे को कहे करे तबले ऊपर केता धरती और
that the bull is holding up the earth. And think about it, there are so many other words. There are words upon words. Who's supporting them? First he says, "Dhavla upar keta bhar." How can a bull hold up the earth which is so much weight? That's a ridiculous thought to begin with. Then he says, "Dharti hor pare hor hote bhar tale jo." So there are so many words after words. Who's holding them all up? So he started off by using that myth to make a point. Then he came back and showed that that is actually just a myth, don't take it literally. Otherwise you'll get into these same logical inconsistencies.
जो पंडित तो पूछ रहे थे ना, पंडित ने पूछा कहना कि वो बल कितने खड़ा कहना वो दूसरे बल ते खड़ा है कहना वो कितने खड़ा वो दूसरे ते खड़ा कहना वो किससे खड़ा सो फाइनली दे कहना वो कितने खड़ा कहना वो रात कहना उसे दिन में गाता
So bottom line is the Guru is saying, don't have faith, but don't give up your rationality and common sense. Otherwise, in fact, they become the blind faith becomes a distraction because you start believing in all kinds of irrelevant things.
But that's a difficult one because when you talk to any religious, they'll say, no, don't ask too many questions. Have faith. So that clashes with the logical approach of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's teaching, right?
It does. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says you have to have deep faith,
right?
Believe in the Guru, but don't have blind faith. Think through a little bit also what the Guru is saying and try to understand what people mean. Don't just get lost in individual words or just believe what people say.
But if you look at reverse, if you have too much logic in everything, you question everything, then how will you be able to meditate, or how will you be able to focus if you don't believe in something? So you need both, right? It's a balance.
And my question was actually about the same thing. What did this slide say? The inconsistencies with the. superstitions and the rituals. I wonder if did anyone ever try to get into, like, maybe there was a logic behind those rituals, for example, the Surya Namaskar, or the act of going and bathing very early in the morning.
If you understand that logic and you're doing it for that reason, then the Guru won't have a problem. But if you're doing it blindly because somebody said this is what gives you salvation or something, it doesn't make sense.
And at the same time, maybe I don't understand the logic, but I follow directions and I've been doing it till somebody comes and points out that, hey, what's the logic? And I don't comprehend it, and I stop doing it. So isn't there an inherent danger there in this kind of question?
Well, that's why you have to seek the Guru's direction. Ultimately, you need help from the Guru.
Why we are going so far, even in our Gurdwara, the way we do things is also
because you're not listening to the Gurus. Because you're not really studying the Gurbani and understanding.
We're moving away.
I just want to just one little practice that is the most distracting is when during the Ardas, Babaji Prashad Apnu Kurban Hoy, that Singh who's standing there he's just waiting for those lines to whip out his kirpan and do the thing to the Prashad. I mean, you know, the Prashad is not running away, the Singh is not running away, the kirpan is right there. Listen to the Ardas. Right, Vichi? Like, what is the big mad rush? Sorry, I don't want to be using that word, but you know, it's like.
Well, a lot of rituals we do blindly and take them too seriously in the Gurdwara and that's why. Like, you know, it's become customary to sit on the ground. That was a pretty sure way to respect the Guru. The Guru is up there. But then there are people who have problems that can't sit down. And it's not very, now it's becoming acceptable, but it hasn't been acceptable in the past to provide chairs for people who can't otherwise sit on the floor. Little things like that, you know, we just take the rituals too seriously. Anyway, there are other examples. This whole section on Sutak in Asadura. The Sutak is the belief in India that when a child is born and there's a birth in a family, there is some impurity there. And everything has to be cleansed, you don't eat anything from there, and you know. Sutak like done that. It's almost like, you know, not being around a lower caste person. It's the same kind of thing about Sutak, that house, everything is impure. You have to go through rituals to clean it. It's an awesome. There's a whole section on that. And he goes about and he points out specifically, he says, Khana pina pavitra hai, ditton rijik sambhai. God has given you this blessing, He's given you all this food, don't start calling it impure. Nanak jini gurmukh puja tena Sutak naya. Those who are gurmukhs who understand the real sense of things, they don't believe in Sutak or all these superstitions. And he specifically says there's life in everything. You believe Sutak is because of life, but there's life in everything. And even the water you use to cleanse and do all the rituals, he's telling you water is full of life also.
So the literal
how can you purify things with water if you're getting rid of the impurity of birth if there's life in water?
is impure, so the literal translation
It's
is impure.
impurity related to childhood at the time of
That is
it's a specific
that's the
usage.
definition.
That's the Hindu name for what happens around it when a child is born in a family. There's Sutak there, so you have to be careful. You have to do all these rituals because, you know, because there's impurity. That's the thing.
Sadhguru Saban is a Khandani.
Exactly, that's what he means. But the point I was making is that he has given a reason, he has given some reasoning and there's some logical reasoning saying कि पानी नाल धोओगे तो Sutak पानी नाल तुझे साफ कर दो तो पानी which भी life है. So that's getting back to my point, is appealing to logic and pointing out logical inconsistencies and saying don't believe it, it doesn't make sense, guys. So he's making you think. He's saying don't just do everything blindly. That was the point I was making.
ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਇਸ ਸ਼ਰਕੇ 'ਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਫਿਲਾਸਫੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਕਿਨੇ ਸਾਇੰਟਿਫਿਕਲੀ ਬੜੀ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਸੂਤਕ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਪਾਸੇ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਪਾਤਕ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਪਾਤਕ ਇਜ਼ ਡੈਥ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟ ਸੋ ਐਟ ਦ ਟਾਈਮ ਆਫ ਦ ਡੈਥ ਉਸ ਘਰ 'ਚ ਰੋਟੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਦੀ ਹਲੇ ਵੀ ਕਈ ਘਰਾਂ 'ਚ ਗਿਆ ਓਕੇ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਸ ਘਰ 'ਚ ਰੋਟੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਉਹ ਕਿਸੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਕਿਨੇ ਮੈਂ ਕੁੜਮਾ ਤੋਂ ਆਣੀ ਹੈ ਕਿਸੇ ਤੋਂ ਘਰ ਆਣੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੋਲ ਰੋਟੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਨੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਹਲੇ ਤੱਕ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪਾਤਕ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੋ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਸੂਤਕ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਪਾਸੇ ਲਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ क्योंकि ये जो लाइन इंदर जी ने पढ़ी है ना खाना पीना पवित्र है तो उस तो पहले गुरु साहब ने किया है जमन मरना हुक्म है पाने आवे जाए फिर क्या उन्होंने खाना पीना पवित्र है सो जमन और मरना हुक्म च गया हुक्म रजाई चलना उस गल की चल रही गल गुरु साहब कहते हैं इसका मतलब तुसी जे खा नहीं रहे खाना पीना पवित्र है गुरु साहब ने क्या हूँ उस तो पहले हुक्म है क्या गल जमन मरना हुक्म है जमना भी हुक्म है मरना भी हुक्म है क्या तो दोनों टाइम से तुसी खाना पीना बंद कर देंगे पर गुरु साहब कहते खाना पीना पवित्र है दितों रिजक संभाल ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਖਾਣਾ ਪਵਿੱਤਰ ਹੈਗਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਕੋਲ look at that what you are doing ਮਤਲਬ he is giving lay down all things in front of you ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਪਾਣੀ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਉਹਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਫਿਰ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜੇਤੇ ਦਾਣੇ ਹਨ ਕੇ ਜੀਆਂ ਬਾਜ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪਏ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਖਾਣ ਪੀਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ I tell you even a grain of wheat it has bacteria in it look at how scientifically Guru Nanak is going in that ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਦੇਖਣਾ grain people did not know till the last century when they invented this microscope ਕਿ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਬੈਕਟੀਰੀਆ Guru Nanak is talking about 500 years ago ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਜੇਤੇ ਦਾਣੇ ਅੰਨ ਕੇ ਜੀਆਂ ਬਾਜ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਟਾ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੋ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਗ੍ਰੇਨ ਉਹ ਮਰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਵੀਟ ਜਮ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਮਰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਮਰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਚਨ 'ਚ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਪਏ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਕੋਈ ਬੰਦਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਮਰ ਗਿਆ ਜਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਜੰਮ ਪਿਆ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਔਰ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਮੈਨੀ ਆਫ ਦੋਜ਼ ਪਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੰਮਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਮਰਦੇ ਨੇ
And all those vegetarians who eat wheat.
Let's not get into that. ਪਰ ਦੇਖਨੇ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਫੇਥ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਫੇਥ ਤੇ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਵੈਜੀਟੇਰੀਅਨ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਨਾਨ ਵੈਜੀਟੇਰੀਅਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਾਣੀ ਚ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਸੋ ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਚਲੇ ਜਾਣਾ ਪਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੂਤਕ ਔਰ ਆਦਿ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਉਹ ਸਮਝਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਨਾਲੇ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜਿਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਲਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਉਸੇ ਲੈਣਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਡੌਗ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਈ ਵਾਰ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਡੌਗ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਤ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਜੋੜੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ स्वामी का घर गिरह जो स्वान तजत नहीं नित ਉੱਥੇ ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਵੀ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਪਾਸੇ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈ ਸਕਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਲੈਣਾ ਹੈ
ਤੁਸੀਂ the context always
oh we have to always look at the context
He was just trying to get his thing.
Part of the whole thing of rationality and common sense is that you have to see the context. You cannot take Gurbani one word, just literally those words. You have to see the context it's presented.
Scientifically बड़ी advanced है ये line. ये जरा है सूतक वाली ये. ये 18वां छक्का जरा.
I just wanted to put this in the larger context of what was going on in the world at that time. This was the 14th century. Right, Vijay?
15th.
1469. 1469. So 15th
to
century,
16th,
right?
yeah.
So, in the Western world, this was around the time that Galileo had talked about gravity, right? The Earth. I'm sorry, Newton had talked about it, and Galileo had talked about the Earth not being flat and part of. And you know what? He was given the death sentence.
He was given the death.
I mean, that is how threatened Christianity was by the advent of science at that time. And Guru Sahib was talking about things that were leap years ahead of science. You know,
Does
so
Christianity talk about death sentence? No.
He wasn't killed. I think he recanted and there's a whole story.
they passed the death
Had to
sentence.
recant the whole thing.
Yeah.
And now, very recently, they have said
They changed it. Yeah.
They changed just very recently, less than
Very recently.
a few months ago. A few months ago, they talked
Yeah.
about, you know, Galileo is forgiven, and
Yeah.
yada yada yada.
What if there is a fundamental difference between science and religion? For example, on the subject of soul, scientists would say this is just consciousness is just a chemical reaction in the brain and such.
I think there you're getting to something that science doesn't really say anything about. That's all speculation anyway. Science doesn't have an answer. And the religion has an answer there.
Well, science last
They haven't
week,
proved one way or the other yet on any of this.
science last week created life in the lab. You probably know.
Yeah, but all they did was basically synthesize the DNA and put it back in the ether. So they didn't create life, they created a particular form of life.
All from chemical reactions.
The DNA from chemical
From protein,
reaction, but the life
from
has to be there to
protein,
begin with.
create DNA.
You have to put it in a cell.
Okay.
Or most of the fundamental principles of life are in the cell already. What they're putting in is the DNA.
The
The
cell has
specific
everything.
kind.
A single cell has
Cell-
everything.
They are doing the programming for what specific form of life it will be. But all the fundamental chemistry of life is already there in the cell, right? So they're not creating it from scratch.
Isn't on sodium and
Maybe someday they will too, that's fine too.
Well, that's the point I'm
They didn't
making.
start this
They
way.
did not talk
If I
about
can add
Then we'll see what
something over
happens.
here, just a few sentences. Then, you know, we, as scientists, we try to explore every day, you know, what's going on. And for over decades, we have tried to analyze the function of a cell, for example. Just take a small micro component of the body and the cell. But, you know, as you look at it more in depth, there is some high power that is existing there, because every protein, every hormone, every single message in the cell is regulated. It's so highly regulated that those are some of the regulations that are lost that you get diseases.
Well, some scientists claim
That's
that
the
comes
outcome,
out of
right?
evolution.
So that, where does all that
They
power
explain
come
it
from?
through evolution, but that's only an explanation. Why does evolution work the way it does? For skeptics who only want scientific answers, they'll always come up with a path to explain it. And for people who have a deeper belief that even all these laws, these laws through which all these complex thing happens, the natural laws, the laws themselves are creation of a higher power.
Yeah,
So
there is higher
science
power,
showing
which is
that
what
there is a
I'm
process so that you
implying,
can make it doesn't obviate the fact that all you've done is discover some more laws, some of God's laws, some of nature's laws. So that's
And
another way
there's
to
still
look at
plenty
it.
to
So
be-
both you can argue on both sides of that one. So just a couple of other examples I've mentioned in here. Again, they don't add too much to it, but they're on the slide. One is there are references to astrology in Gurbani. Clearly the Gurus didn't believe it because they described the Brahmins doing the Janam Patri in a very skeptical way and saying they're doing it for their own livelihood. And there are also many passages that talk about good and bad omens, holy days and not holy days, and saying, that's all bunk. They've debunked all that stuff. So this one here says, Sagun apsagun pisko lage, just cheat na aave. So this idea of good omens or bad omens or auspicious times or not, these only apply to people who don't think about why they believe in all this. If you believe in the deeper stuff, this is all meaningless.
But it's a science.
It's not a science, it's a theory.
Pseudoscience.
It's not a science, it's pseudoscience. There's no real science behind it. If you look at what scientific method is, astrology doesn't follow the scientific method. It's a set of beliefs that have been put in place. Like alchemy used to be considered a science at one time. Right?
But alchemy gave birth to medicine, right?
Maybe, but alchemy itself was not a science. It was just a lot of people believing certain things and building a whole science around it.
The concept of Amrit Vela is also a misguided notion, I would think.
Maybe not.
Depending how you perceive
We
that,
don't know.
because
There is no scientific refutation of it per se. There's no scientific proof either. So you have to go by a spiritual input on that one. If it works, if the experience says that it's meaningful, and the Guru tells you that, then I believe him that really there's some value in it.
I agree, I think when he's saying
But I don't think, he's not making any scientific claims per se. He's saying the most effective time to do that will be if you get up in the morning and do it before everything else. That's the best time.
That's right.
Also pregnant.
So again, then the common sense would apply, because at that time,
Well,
it's
there
the
are
most
bodily
serene
rhythms.
time of the
The
day.
environment is a certain way and the bodily rhythms are a certain way.
There are planetary rhythms also.
The effect of, according to science, the effect of anything remote like a planet or especially the faraway things is so infinitesimal compared to the Earth itself.
But your own,
Compared to the effect of the next building on you, the gravitation of the mountain near you, is probably has more effect than the nearest planet.
no, but the way your planet is moving,
You don't have
your-
that.
no,
Astrology-
you are
astrology-
affected by it.
That's what astrology claims.
You are affected by the rhythm of the moon. You are affected by everything. But the thing is beyond all of
Even
that
if there is some
is
side
the effect of the now.
even if there is some effect from those planets, the logic that this determines your destiny, the moment you are born, what the planetary configuration was at that time. Also, it says everybody born at that instant should have exactly the same destiny,
everything.
right? So
And
there's a
there
lot
are-
of logical inconsistencies, and there's no scientific method behind it. It has to do with making a theory and then getting evidence and showing that it's true, right?
But those
Without that,
general-
there's no science.
Sorry.
And there's been no such thing about astrology.
They have not done the empirical studies.
They have no,
They
there's no
cannot do
scientific
anything.
method there.
It's beyond that.
It's a set of beliefs. There's no scientific basis for it whatsoever. They don't use a scientific method for it.
In fact, you will repeat the same thing millions of times with the same result. But
There's no
Astrology
real logic
doesn't work
behind
that
it,
way.
and there's no real evidence behind it. There's belief.
But if obviously this is a full moon on there, we do have high tides in the sea.
Yeah, the moon has more effect than
So
anything else.
that's,
The moon is close enough that it has a visible effect on water and things like that, and it may have effect on menstrual cycles and other things. So it's very possible the moon has all kinds of effect. And the planets, if it has any, it's very, very small. The effect of a mountain near you is going to be higher than the effect of any planet, because the gravitation from the mass there is higher.
The interesting thing is that these things are physical magnetic forces. They may have impact, like moon has magnetic impact, But what that has to do with the fortune, like fortune tellers tell you,
Going from that
has
stage,
nothing to
might
do
have
with
some
it.
effect to astrology.
Right.
There's no impact on spirituality. Bob.
Right, it's not special. It could be physical impact of magnetic force.
But one should not cross them up like this. There's nothing there.
That's
Exactly.
basically
They can
extrapolation
be
of
very accurate.
Yeah.
They can be so
the
darn
courses,
accurate that
like
it's-
courses.
Well, I'm not
Exactly.
going to get into that,
But
but at
does-
least the Gurbani
Destiny,
stresses
fortune,
But see, the
has
thing
nothing
is
to do.
beyond that is why use Vakshes and Nadar and Naam and the force of Naam. The person, the force that created all.
We want to talk about Sikhi and not astrology
Exactly.
here.
And I think for gurus, again, the problem was that if everybody started believing in astrology, then you would never be doing any of the other things the gurus talk about. Oh, man, astrology,
It's limiting.
and then you would. It's limiting. That's why the gurus debunked it. Simple.
Now, the deeper issue is one of faith versus science. That's what
Yeah.
we always get into, right? I've talked about before. So clearly, while the gurus are telling us to use common sense, the stronger message is a very deep faith in the guru and his teaching is essential. That's the core message. But you don't have to be irrational about it. You don't just use blind faith. So use your common sense that God has given you, even in terms of how understanding the guru's message, in terms of finding who should you listen to. Use some common sense there. Use your buddhi in that. Don't just follow things because somebody told you or somebody's been doing it before. But the rituals themselves, actually in the first session we talked a lot about the rituals, right? Rituals themselves to some people become more important, and they lose the deeper message because of that. So the Guru is saying you have to have deep faith. You have to believe that the Guru is divine, that the message is coming from Vaheguru. You have to believe that the Guru Granth Sahib has a lot to tell you, and you have to have the faith. But use your common sense also. Don't just go after whatever other people are doing. Now there are a lot of things, a lot of Gurbani tells you lots of things, like we talk about soul and various other things that it's talking about spiritual and moral matters and other things that science doesn't directly address one way or the other.
It's a different layer in that
Yeah,
sense, right?
It's a different field.
Yeah.
it's a different field. That's my thesis in the whole thing is that Gurbani is about spiritual and other matters and science is about something else. You should not look for science in Gurbani and you shouldn't look for the other thing.
So I think one thing is kind of true that the science is mostly always kind of behind the spirituality, because if you look at the more and more they are doing this research, like the physics, they finally find in the atom they find there is electrons, and I mean what is it, the visible thing is only like the 99% is empty inside the atom. That's the smallest thing we are. Then where is the actual solid thing, right? So it's like mithya. Is there actually does anything actually exist, right? That's what. So there are those kind of things. Then there is no more answer to it, right? So.
Yeah, where physics is heading, modern physics, it's almost becoming like metaphysics. Because,
It is.
because it doesn't
It is.
correspond to our ideas of what is real, what is unreal. So that if you actually get into it, it is more fantastic than the things that Gurbani tells you to believe. If you think some of the things about soul and other things are hard to believe, what
Yeah,
quantum
because-
mechanics tells you is even much worse.
So,
Yeah, so physics is more, more related to, you can actually start thinking about there's a soul when you
Right.
start getting the deeper, you can start thinking about the, time dimension, once you start looking at how they're all the research they're doing on what is the farthest galaxy, where it is, what we see right now as a farthest galaxy is actually coming from billion years back. So what is it right now? Is it maybe, us, it's a billion years back, us who were there, right? So it's like,
so
but something.
100 years ago,
Huh.
when physics was still pretty primitive compared to where it's now. When Einstein heard some of the things about quantum mechanics, he discussed them with people, especially this part about entanglement. He said that is weird. He used some strange words for it. Not weird, but something that means something similar. Because this weird action at a distance kind of thing doesn't make any sense.
What
Doesn't
is it?
exist.
Interconnectedness?
Entanglement in quantum mechanics.
Spooky something.
Yeah, spooky. He used the word spooky. He said this is spooky. Spookiness. This is not science. And now, of course, they've gotten spookier and spookier.
it's interesting.
But basically, it says that two particles can get entangled, and then if something happens to one, it also affects the other one. Doesn't matter where they are.
That's photons, they're called the
It can
photons.
be anything. But it's easiest to find with photons, but it can apply to anything.
But for example, in
It's real crazy stuff.
absolutely. In quantum physics, there's a dual particle theory, talking about macro and micro. that goes into the field of religion almost,
Yeah,
metaphysics,
exactly.
right?
That's what I'm saying.
Gurbani,
Five answers in
Gurbani has
for that.
Trula, right? So
Well-
that's where the science and
Yeah, but-
metaphysics and religion is kind of merging.
Catching
But
up.
I think in a way,
Yeah.
where the science, wherever it may have an end, if you think that the science has an end, that's where the religion and spirituality begins. That's the first
For
step.
the mind, right? That's where the
But,
yeah.
so when you apply the scientific mind to the best of your capability, it will never ever even get close to the part what Babaji is talking about. That's my understanding of it.
Right.
So one should not try to,
But
if
I
you try
think-
too much,
I agree, but a lot of things are coming more clear as science is getting more. For example, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, when it talks about evolution, talks about the world started with that sound, with a nod, right? And then now the science is talking about the Big Bang, which basically is a big
The
sound,
explosion.
the explosion that created it. So there are a lot of things that you can find similarities in there.
We'll
But
come to this a little bit later, then let's talk about it. Let's
Okay.
talk about the next slide.
All right,
I
sorry.
don't want to stop any discussion, but let's do it, but let's do
Andy,
it.
let's continue. Sorry.
So just to continue with this thought, the Gurbani is about deeper truths. And it's about the Akat Katha, which can't be explained in human terms. So because of that, it is full of metaphors, illustrations, examples used from what people knew at that time. And there's a lot of context to it, as Jesse was pointing out, or you were pointing out. You have to think of who he was teaching, and who he was telling it to, and he used the vocabulary and the knowledge and the science, their ideas of science at that time of reality. He had to express it in those terms. So you have to look for the deeper meaning and not take everything literally. There are lots of things, if you take literally, they don't make any sense. But if you go to the deeper meaning, it becomes clear what Guru is saying makes sense.
I only have one quarrel with your earlier statement.
Which one?
Gurbani came from God.
Oh, that's our belief. I cannot prove it. The whole idea is the Gurbani itself says, "Gurki Bani Ai."
That's
The message comes from God, it's divine.
maybe that's also speaking metaphorically.
Maybe. But the theory is that God himself is Vaheguru, he's the ultimate Guru. And he himself provides, he has created all this world in which there's Maya and everything else and all the problems and challenges, and he separated us from him. But he himself sends people, saints, prophets, gurus, to whom he has revealed himself and they can explain it, or some people discover it within themselves. He's the Guru. The revelation also comes from God himself.
Discovering yourself is more, to me, a rational way of
Except the mind itself is designed to take us in the other direction, to confuse us. So if it depends purely on our logical thinking, it's not likely to get there. And that's why the concept that somebody else who's on the spiritual path, you have to have the influence of them. That's where Sangat comes in. Without Sangat by ourselves, it's next to impossible. Except for a few blessed souls, it's next to impossible without the right Sangat. And that's where Guru and all that comes in. Now, Guru is one who is fully realized and is close to Vaheguru and is like Vaheguru himself in that sense. In one sense, Gurbani tells us everybody is Vaheguru, right? Everything is Vaheguru within ourselves, Mantra, Jyot, Surup, and we're all God at that level. But the Guru is fully in tune with that and aware with that reality. And so the Guru, as the message comes to the Guru and he presents it, but he presents it, he's human also. So he presents this in human terms, in terms of human language, in terms of people who listen to him. So only the deeper meaning comes straight from Vaheguru, the actual words are from the individual. Whereas the underlying deep message that comes from Vaheguru. I don't claim that every single word is directly uttered by God. God doesn't speak Punjabi or English or any other language, right? So you can't argue that these words are exactly this because Vaheguru uttered them. But the deeper meaning, the message, the sense is, according to the Gurus themselves, it says it many places in Gurbani in different ways. Many other examples from Kabir and others also that says, don't think this is a song, this is Brahma's message, this is Gurbani message.
So then as the thought came, Guruji, from the Almighty, as thought, so was it written. And that's what the body is.
That's what he's saying.
Right.
So
So
basically,
The message is Vaheguru message.
That's
So I don't think,
chants.
you can say,
They're the chants.
so basically the Bani, it's coming from that realized view, the realized state. So it takes us to that realized state in whatever words it's put in, right?
Kuch
So-
keh rahe ho?
Yeah, I think you just a little bit on this. See, when God speaks, He spoke at different times, and that's why Guru Granth Sahib has a Bani from all different saints also. Baba Farid was in 11th century. Okay, God spoke to him certain things. Kabir Das another time, Guru Nanak Dev Ji another time, Guru Gobind Singh another time. All of the time, if you really look at the message, is the same. Ik Onkar di gal ho rahi hai. So this is the reason it's a Turki Bani, because God speaks the same thing to different individual, different faith.
Well, Kabir spoke to God, but God may not have spoken to Kabir.
No, Gurbani, Kabir Das Bani says that God spoke to me.
So,
I agree, but Gurbani says that.
I have a question. So is God continued to give that knowledge and talk, or has he stopped talking?
He's always continued.
Continuing process.
Yeah, he's ever since process.
So who are the people?
That's what in the Moji said that.
So all the organized religions claim that he stopped.
Right. Every religion
Islam
says
says,
that.
Yeah, Guru Nanak,
he's the last prophet.
Islam says
Christianity
Muhammad is
says
the last
Jesus was
prophet.
the only begotten son.
Right.
These are from the organizations.
But Bani says he's always talking.
Guru Nanak Dev Ji doesn't say that. He
I
says
don't,
that
I don't
actually.
believe Jesus or Muhammad said it either. I think it's the organized leaders of religions that need to do that to make people follow their faith and not go to other faiths.
Right.
So they say, if he was the prophet and he brought all this, then maybe others too in the future. But they say, no, don't, there's never going to be anybody else. This is it, guys, you have to follow this.
But you have to follow some path.
I'm going to take off the tangent. Please continue. Because I have a question, I'll take it offline.
I'm sorry?
I have a question, but I'll take it off the tangent. So stay with the topic. Because I'm going to take it. If there is well being revealed to people, that means did we stop at the 10th Guru? Guru Granth Sahib, or
Yeah,
we
that's
continue?
exactly. That's my question too. If the need was felt at the time to have such.
No, he's still even talking today. He's still talking today.
He's talking to you too?
That's what Inder Mohi said, that because he's still talking to us because of our home and all these other things inside, and that's why we cannot see it clearly. So the people who have become true, he's still speaking to that.
As far as God sending more prophets, by taking the Bani from different people at different times, the Gurus showed us that this is a constant process.
Right.
If you did it in the past, there's no reason to believe.
How did Guru Nanak Sahib have access to Farid Ji, who was in the 11th century?
Guru Nanak Dev Ji met his
His
descendant.
successor.
Guru Nanak Dev Ji went to Multan and met Baba Farid's descendant. Okay, there's a seat
Were they
there.
preserved?
Hadi. So there's a place
So
there's a place near Multan called Ajodhan.
Pakpatan.
Near
He went to
Ajodhan
Pakpatan, Guru Nanak
where
Dev Ji.
the seat of the Baba Farid is there. There's still next generation, still somebody there, head of that.
So weren't they following the oral tradition then? Were things written down?
Written down, apparently there's a Sakhi where the descendant of Baba Farid gave Guru Nanak Dev some of the writings.
But on the other hand, the access that Guru Nanak Dev Ji had was beyond what we need to know.
Okay.
Now you want to come to a topic on which some of you might not even agree with me fully on this. This is about miracles. Gurus themselves did not perform miracles as part of their prachar mission. So it's not an essential part of their message, because their message was Hukam Hridai Chalna, live in harmony with God's will. So they didn't say, I'm the Guru, I'm going to show you, I'm going to come here and I'm going to, as the Christians believe that Jesus went and he used to change water to wine so they would have more food and bread and so on. And that is a part of their, important part of their belief system. We don't know if Jesus did that, but that becomes a part of their theology. And the Gurus did not do that. There are, however, lots of miracles in our Sakhis about the Gurus. Panjab Sahib the miracle hai gaya, wo bhi bade hai gaya. Now, I don't take a position on whether they will happen or didn't happen. We don't know. I do believe it's very possible that around Gurus and Sikhi people, miraculous things happen, because they are more in tune with Vaheguru. But it doesn't matter. Whether it's real or not is a non-issue. There's so many Sakhis that have things that clearly have been added later on, because there's so many different Janam Sakhis, some miracles come in one, not in the other. And some of them might really have happened because he was a divine person. We don't know. But the real miracle is his message, and the fact that he was able to have so much influence on so many people. He could convert sinners and to bring them on the path. Because that is the real miracle. So whether he did some other miracles here or there is not essential to our faith.
I think before we go to miracle, we should really point out what Guru Granth Sahib says about this. Guru Granth Sahib says that Navnidhi 18 सिद्धियां पिछे लगियां फिरे जो हर हृदय सदा बसाए. गुरु साहब कहते हैं miracles are the follower of these people. So इन्हों लेके फिर नाथ जपजी साहब ने उन्होंने किया है रिद्ध सिद्ध अवरा साहब
Don't get involved.
Don't get involved. These are the barrier to getting to the next stage. So most of the people stop there. Oh my God, miracles. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji has given a very low importance to this. Oh, कहते हैं ये चीज़ें तुम्हारे पीछे आन गियां, but don't get entangled with that. So these are not very major things. Guru Tegh Bahadur जी ने किया सी उन्होंने कहते हैं शहीद नहीं करना तुझे miracle दिखाओ. ते Guru Gobind जी ने किया कि नहीं है देखना. Guru Gobind जी ने किया गया सी उन्होंने miracle दिखाओ देखना मैं ते उन्होंने किया सी वो तलवार काट ली सी उस वक्त. कहते हैं ये तेरे miracle में दसना मत है. So मतलब कि ये चीज़ है उन्हें दसना है कि उन्हें को all these powers were there. So but they did not use for the personal gains in anything. All our gurus have used this to bring other people closer to God.
I agree.
So they use for that purpose. क्योंकि ये पावर सारे को लगी यानी जो कहते हैं gnome निधि 18 सिद्धि पीछे लगियां फिर उन्हें दे पीछे होंदियां ने सारी.
So there are many sects among Sikhism also, Vyas Wale, many others also. Sai Baba was another one who believed in doing miracles wherever he went. Right.
That was a big part of his preaching.
Right, it was part of his messaging. But now scientists have explored and exposed all of those miracles that he was doing. So that's why I think Guru's message is more beyond miracles, and it's the message that's more important than actual miracle.
But Mohanji's point and Veerji's point is absolutely right. Miracles happen around those that are in tune. Prabh ke Simran Ridh Siddh No Nidh Sukhoni Saavich Anda hai. Anda hai, but tusi unna de piche nahi lagna, as Veerji said. That is the key.
Some people believe all these things happen around Guru Nanak. Some may be skeptical, but it doesn't matter even those who are skeptical because it's not part of the essential path. That's what I say here. Miracles happen around those who are in tune with Vaheguru. That's the belief. Now, you may not agree with all that. Many people won't agree with that, perhaps. But it doesn't matter.
देखो जब तुसी कर रहे होते ना तुसी कुछ sense by सोचते हो कुछ हो जाता है and you say चलो मैं imagine कर लेती हूँ, but if you really get into it Bhagwan says it.
Now there are the Guru Granth Sahib does not talk too much about miracles because it's not a part of the message. But there are some miracles described in there. A couple of them by Namdev. He says that the temple got turned around, God turned it around for him, and by Kabirji where he was tied him up and threw him in the water and he was saved. So there are some miracles described in there. Then you're getting into myths and all that. So there you can say that there are only examples from myths, but here Kabir and Namdev actually describe their own experience. So I can't claim that there are no miracles in Guru Granth Sahib. So there are a couple of descriptions by Namdev and Kabir, but in general the message doesn't depend on miracles. Now, so that's the important part, that it's not a key part of Sikhi itself. You can be a Sikh even if you don't believe any of those miracles. And you can't be a Christian, according to at least devout Christians, unless you believe in Christ's resurrection and some of these other miraculous things. And similarly, Islam and others. And Hinduism, of course, is full of miracles. But at least Hinduism is so broad that some people will claim, Vedantists and others, that they don't believe in miracles also. But Hinduism is so broad. Basically, a lot of it is dependent on all these mythical stories about gods and goddesses and lots of miraculous things. And they are, again, an essential part of their faith. And in particular, the Brahmanical teaching ties in miraculous things with various rituals so that people can do their ceremonies and give them lots of money. It was a very funny thing when I was still in school. They had this famous incident called Ashgraha, and back to astrology, and all the planets were going to line up. And everybody, it was predicted that great calamities would happen. It's like these people talking about the end of the world. Right. So all of India went crazy, and there were big yags going on everywhere. And the Brahmins got lots of money because everybody made them do all these big yags. And Ashgra came, nothing happened. They did all these yags of the calamities, so they claimed that they did the miracle.
Similar to analogy is a very similar analogy would be like how a lot of consulting company and IT firms made money during the Y2K, right? The concern about Y2K is everything, the whole computer system will collapse and things needs to be done.
But that's different, right? There was a reason behind it. 2 days was 4 days. So there was, although nothing happened, thank God. Still.
But that was an economic miracle for India.
Yeah. But like 2012, people talk about next year, so we don't know.
So what is a miracle? When people get so impressed, they believe in somebody because all this miraculous thing happened. They say, this Baba did this and all the result happened. I went to him and he had the child, or miracles happened, they believe in them, they get very excited. And people look to miracles to strengthen their faith, that proves to them that there's a higher power. But if you think about it, what is a miracle? It's a violation of natural laws. If something doesn't happen the way we're used to it, then we say it's a miracle. But natural laws themselves are so miraculous. Nature is full of miracles. Think of, as you were saying, how do all these wonderful things happen? Or how does an eye get created, a human eye? People still say evolution can't be true because something this complex couldn't be done. But natural laws create such miraculous things. Human emotions like love. What about consciousness? All these are part of nature and they're miraculous. They're far more miraculous than somebody lifting something up or making something flat. So why should a violation of God's already full of miracles things be more miraculous? So you don't need that for faith.
Yeah, but it's like having this chai or coffee with sugar and cream. This is going to be converted into so many different parts of the body that we have no idea. Just something so simple providing so many different things. That is a miracle if you want to look at it.
Lipton asked you to say that, right?
The fact that everything in the world is made out of just three particles basically. Protons, neutrons, and electrons can make everything. All this amazing stuff comes just out of three little things. There's so many miracles in nature.
From your knowledge of quantum physics,
Very little.
are the natural laws also evolving or in any way?
Nobody knows that. There are some theories that they might be, but most scientists assume that they are eternal in our universe, but they believe there might be many universes with different natural laws that are different.
So is it
But there are some people who think they might be wrong.
So,
So you define miracle as a violation of that. Is it an actual violation? Can they actually be violated, or is this perceived?
If you believe miracles really happen, then they are being violated.
I'm sorry?
If you really believe that miracles really happen,
So natural laws can be broken?
natural laws as we understand them,
As we
and
understand.
what we're used to, the natural laws that we're used to seeing, if they seem to be violated, then we call it a miracle, right?
Right, exactly.
No,
So it's
but
only
really
the
happens.
perception. So
It's
that's the
perception.
issue. It's not the actual violation. You're not talking about that at all.
Well, it could be an
It
actual.
depends how you define natural
depending
laws.
how you
If
see
you
that.
define natural laws to include these spiritual miracles, then you can say, well, it's still part of natural laws. I don't know.
But you can
I
also
don't know
say
the
it
answer.
could be real too. A mango falling down from a tree, but somebody who's spiritually inclined, they can kind of put that thing back to the tree. Now, in one case, he's really putting it back to the tree, but the other person would say, that's supernatural power. So yes, you're breaking the law, but the other guy has the capacity to put it back too. Just like Babi says, God can make a dead person alive also.
Prabhave pinsaste rakhe.
Okay, yes, you're right.
Prabhave pinsaste rakhe.
Rakhe.
Yeah.
So in that case, what do? That goes beyond normal science and technology.
It doesn't really actually. You don't have the vocabulary to
That's the
describe
point.
it.
It's this kind of
So he basically said
Now,
that.
when you get to quantum mechanics and even what little we know about quantum mechanics, current theory, it's worse than, it goes well beyond the miracles that we think about. Now, if you talk about, if you can move something from here to there, that will be considered a miracle. But it happens all the time according to quantum mechanics at the subatomic level. They can be, things go from one place to the other without being in between. And things can be present everywhere. Everything is present everywhere, actually.
I think that.
There's a distribution. You think that you are here, but every single atom or particle in yours has a probability distribution that extends across the whole universe according to quantum mechanics.
So I think there are
You know.
It's like when you talk.
And that's why I
It's all
go as far
magic,
as
it's all
saying
miracles.
that there are
It's all
multiple realities, even as we exist here, each one of us has multiple realities.
Or the possibility of.
No, it actually exists. Anyway, it's too spooky and too weird that none of the quantum mechanicists, I think it was Feynman who said, anybody who claims he understands quantum mechanics is lying to you.
Yeah.
None of them understand it. You can't really understand it, you can only do the math. But it's amazingly accurate. It's accurate to hundreds of places, decimal places, and all of our electronics, all semiconductors depends on that. A lot of all the recent discoveries and improvements in semiconductor technology have all come from quantum mechanics, so it works.
The device
But
has.
See,
nobody
there are
knows-
places
nobody
where it
understands
doesn't
it, but it
work.
works.
Yeah,
There
but-
are places we know where it doesn't work. The mystery spot is there. Bermuda's Triangle is there. Where law of physics just don't work when they can't explain.
Well, those are controversial things.
They don't seem to.
So scientists don't agree with that, but nobody has a proof on it. That's the same with all this UFO stuff, and nobody knows really.
So
But there's no evidence of any, no hard evidence that scientists accept.
So photons, neurons, and
Neurons.
neutrons, that's supposed to act in a certain way.
No, but I think if you go beyond it,
The equations that describe the whole mathematics.
And the Schrodinger equation?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and other developments after that.
Put up a bad name.
So, I think, people think if scientists discover something new that's a violation of what is written in the scriptures, that's a problem for their faith. But the right way to look at it, and I think the Sikhi way to look at it, is that anything discovered by science is a part of God's glory. God has created all these things. They're so wonderful. If science is discovering something new, hey, that's something more for the smart. How wonderful. Look at what Vichaar's done. He discovered something more of his wonders. That's the way Sikhs can look at it. So it doesn't have to be any challenge to our faith. And Gurbani has a lot of talk about God's glory in terms of nature. Guru describes all the beauty of nature and all that, and it's described in the context of Ismail, in the context of how wonderful Vichaar is.
On the miracle, I just wanted to say what Gurbani says, what is miracle? इन्होंने दस्या है कि हर नाम मन में से यह सिद्ध यह करामात ओके ए करामात है फिर वो खाली यो नहीं दस्या है उन्होंने फिर प्रूव करके दस्या कहते हैं तन रामदास गुर जिन सिरिया ने सवारिया पूरी हुई करामात आप सिरजनहारे तारे उन्होंने दस्या ए रियल मिरेकल है डोंट टॉक अबाउट दीस थिंग्स आर मिरेकल रियल मिरेकल है a child 400 years ago born with who's an orphan yeah Jinnu, they can he never went to school, nothing. Or they can how, what stage he got to. Can the real karamat can then Tan Ramdas Gur, Jin Siria Tene Suvaria, Puri Hoi Karamat. Karamat is miracle. Puri, this is a complete miracle. This is the real miracle. And that's the miracle we should strive for.
Very well put.
and I think I like that first sentence here, that the scientific discovery is really a discovery of God's glory. You're right. I think as we're finding more and more, it can't be in conflict with religion. It can't be.
And again, Gurbani has so many examples of singing of God's glory and His creation, like the whole Artiga, Kadin Menthal, and Deepak and Tarika, and that Kirtan Solat, and the whole thing is, all of nature is doing a beautiful article. Right? That's what I see when I look at nature. It's all singing God's glory. And that's all we can look at science, the ways of singing God's glory, sing some other aspects of that glory. The Guru says, Karte Kudrat ki mustaq. I'm in love with all your creation, all your creative power. I'm like a lover of all that.
Mustaq is I'm an ashik.
Now, the things that have come up before also today and elsewhere, there are other things in Gurbani that current science is discovering that people didn't know at that time. And people go to extremes on this who say, okay, they read all the current discovery, they read into Gurbani and says, the Guru already knew this, they already knew this. And there are a few that say that the Gurus may have expressed some insights about nature and science that science discovered later. And Gurbani talks about countless earths, suns, moons, which at that time was not part of the common knowledge. Countless universes also. Kot Brahman, Kot Thakur Swami. Now, current practitioners of physics are looking at many aspects of it that lead to the belief in multiple universes. If something can't be explained, the way to explain certain things is by saying there are lots of universes. In fact, there's a recent book by Brian Greene called The Hidden Reality that's all about multiverses and the different theories behind it and how you come up with.
What's it called? The Hidden Reality. There's another one, The Divine Matrix. It's not that new, but that's I think it's
This one specifically is focused on Vichaar's theory. So we'll look on different ways to that different paths that modern physicists are following all seem to lead to the possibility of multiple universes, and more than the possibility, almost a requirement. In fact, the recent book by who's the famous guy in the wheelchair? I'm like not on his name. Yeah, his most recent book is Grand Reality, or Grand Design. Yeah, he's in that he claims, and this became kind of headlines in the newspapers, that he has proved that we don't need God, that God doesn't exist. And the logic there was that there are some 6 constants in nature that have to be just right for us to exist, for the universe to exist the way it is and for us to be here. Like the gravitational constant It was a little too much, everything would have collapsed. It was a little too little, galaxies would never have formed. So it had to be in a very specific range for the universe we know to have existed. And similarly with others like Planck's constant and a few others. So scientists have called that the Goldilocks rule. Everything had to be just right. And they said people said there must be a God or somebody who set these constants in a way that things could exist. So now with multiverse theory, the point is there are so many countless universes, all with different laws, different things, and we would obviously be in the one where we could exist. So we just happen to be in the one where these numbers were just right. We don't need a God for that. It's just that, it's like evolution. You create lots of things, and the one that survives is the one that's going to continue. And they're saying like that, human beings who could ask these questions could only exist in the universe that could exist. So that's why we see those constants as being just right. So we don't need a God. So that was Hawking's new claim in this latest book. Go ahead.
Good luck.
The point is they believe in countless universes. And Gurbani does have several references to that. Quote Brahman to Thakur Swami, lots of other
I didn't get, so there are countless universes, and then what does it say? We exist in all the, what was that?
No,
but
this was, if this was a way of explaining why those constants of nature are just right in our universe. And they explain it by saying that they're just lots of universes, and randomly, if there are infinite number, randomly a few will be just right. And we would happen to be in one because obviously we can't exist in the other, so that's why they're just right.
But Babaji has already acknowledged that by saying, quote Brahman, quote Thakur.
Yeah, he was already talking about multiple universes 500 years ago, which is only coming up in theory. Nobody still has any proof, but the current theories are talking about multiple universes. So this is an example of where, Gurbani seems to have talked about scientific insights that are way ahead of their time.
Multiple Earths or multiple universes?
Universe.
So universe as we know in a scientific form that extend from X, Y, one and the other.
Everything we can think of for existence is a universe, and science says that other parallel universes.
Brahman is universe.
Yeah, theorizing there's a whole system of lots of universes. And in fact, they get created and destroyed. There's a concept that, there's another book that I refer to here called Nothing, a Short Introduction by Frank Rose. It's a whole book on that, on nothing, the quantum theory behind vacuum, even beyond space as we know it, even outside the universe, what's the underlying vacuum, and some theories around that. And they talk about quantum foam, how even empty space, there's something happening all the time. There's quantum fluctuations, and you can create little bubbles, and one of them can expand and form a universe. And you can get infinite energy out of it, because there's also negative energy in some way, something called the Higgs field. So the whole theory behind that, how universes are getting created and destroyed. And Gurbani talks about that. Exactly, he talks about universes being created and
none of
destroyed.
this threatens Gurbani. None of these.
Well, here I'm saying the things that actually say the opposite. These are the things that say there are scientific truths to be found in Gurbani.
Right. But what I'm saying is what they are talking about challenging is the Christian theology.
Right. This is the opposite. Here I'm talking about things
they
that
support Gurbani, these things.
Yeah. Here I'm talking about the fact that in Gurbani, not only do you not have serious contradictions, but you actually have some things that one can say that the gurus had a deeper vision of things that science is only now discovering. And I think you had pointed one or two things. So there are a few more like this. Some people read Big Bang into Kitab Pasawik or Kawab, and other descriptions in Gurbani that say it all happened from at once. There was nothing before, Arbad Narbad Hindukara, and then God said and it all created. So that's seen as being analogous to the Big Bang theory. We talked about earlier that in Asadivar and in other places also, the Guru says that water is the source of life. And that is something that NASA talks about now. They're looking for life everywhere that can't exist without water. What about the injection against tobacco by Guru Gobind Singh? Was that some sense of future discoveries of how terrible tobacco is? I don't know. I put a question mark on it. And it's also not clear whether what was forbidden was just tobacco or was it drugs and alcohol also or what. I think there are different opinions on that. But in practice, tobacco is treated as the taboo in Punjab. Everybody drinks, but they don't use tobacco.
It's one of the Bajra Qurans.
Yeah.
But
The general point is that there are possibilities of some things showing some science of the future being known to the gurus or being expressed at that time.
The beautiful ads, impressive statistics, like how many people die of tobacco. There's more than AIDS and alcohol and other things, all combined.
Yeah, it's huge, it's huge. But it's become socially acceptable, so it's been hard to get rid of it.
But it's
Although we have these
mentioned
Baba Sahib Khana
That's basically an allusion to common sense. That's an allusion more to common sense. Use your common sense. And that's kind of saying, look to science, find out what's bad for you and don't eat it. That's almost a window of science. But there are lots of things in there that are contradictory to science. Lots of individual books you find there. And the reason is that the gurus were using the context of that time and the knowledge of that time. And they used examples that would be meaningful to their readers. And there are far more of those than there are other kind of things I mentioned before that seem to be supporting science. So you have to be careful. Because people make claims that Gurbani tells you everything about science. You should not go around making claims like that, because you can find a lot more contraindications if you start getting nitpicky.
Wow, so under Jared, why is it a contradiction? Because their life is created in other ways?
No.
There is no such thing as sweat worn, for example. And there are other ways of creating life in those four.
ਇਹ ਚਾਰ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਚਾਰ ਖਾਣੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦਸੀਆਂ ਨੇ that's what prevalent at that time.
Exactly.
But when you go into ਗਿਆਨ ਖਾਣ
thousands of years before.
ਜਪਜੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਜਾਓ ਗਿਆਨ ਖਾਣ ਚ ਉੱਥੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖੇਤੀਆਂ ਖਾਣੀ ਖੇਤੀਆਂ
So in the
ਖਾਣੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ there's a many ways of creation. It's not only four. ਖੇਤੀਆਂ ਖਾਣੀ. So on the Mars probably the person may be with 3 elements. Persons could be created with 3 elements. Here we are all everything with 5 elements. You cannot be anything like.
There is no such thing as 5 elements. The 5 elements. See, all these examples are mostly from what was traditionally believed in India for thousands of years.
Contemporary.
The 5 elements they used, which is earth, sky, air.
Earth, water, fire,
Heat.
Those are not, from a scientific point of view, those are not building blocks or elements. The building blocks are. So again, this is. But it has a very important deeper meaning. When you come in Sangha to the Guru or somebody who's in touch with life, that's how you yourself become purified and realized. So Sangha is very important.
So religion is an allegorical reference.
Exactly.
So Gurbani has mythological references, metaphorical references, allegorical references. So it's poetry, and so it takes the aid of all of these things.
Some of them are allegorical, some of them was actually believed and believed as a shorthand. Even 84 lakh. Nobody knows exactly how many beings there are. There are probably more than that, more than 8.4 million species. That number is nothing sacrosanct about it, but it's used everywhere in Gurbani, and it's used in Indian poetry for thousands of years. Because some sages thousands of years ago in India decided, they used to classify everything and put numbers on everything. They're very scientific in some sense, and they came up with the 84 lakh.
They wanted to quantify.
And they use it. And what it means is lots. 84 lakh means countless, all these huge number of different species. That's the way you have to look at it.
ये पारस लेकिन गुरबाणी doesn't say पारस कि पारस से गुरबाणी च आएगा रेफरेंस पर गुरबाणी ने क्या है पारस गुरु पेटी है पूरब लिखत लिलाट उन्मन मन ही मिले छुटकत बजर कपाट एक गुरु भगत रविदास जी कहते हैं पारस की है पारस गुरु है मतलब पारस का रेफरेंस दे सब जगह पे पर ये नहीं कह रहे कि मैं कहना पे पारस है गुरु नानक बाणी ने किधरे नहीं किया कि पारस एग्जिस्ट उन्होंने ये किया कि पारस 10 के ना फिर उन्होंने एक्सप्लेन किया व्हाट इज पारस कहते पारस गुरु पेटी ना
The transformation is what Paras is basically referring to.
Paras Guru क्या क्या? Paras Gur Peti है.
But that comes to using the deeper meaning and understanding what it means.
Right. So वो समझाने वास्ते दस रहे हैं पारस की चीज़ है क्या? पर कहते हैं मैं नहीं कहता पे कि पारस exist कर जाएगा. कहते हैं पारस की है क्या? गुरु है.
But the things in the previous slide which we said were true in science today, people didn't know then. Those are also used to make a point. The Guru is not trying to teach you science, but maybe he knew those things and he used them to express the wonders of nature or God's infiniteness. So we don't know. My point is not that Gurbani doesn't have contradictions with science if you understand the deeper meanings.
Yeah.
Does it also tell you about science? There are some interesting things, but it's not not something you should go looking for. And there are people who argue that Gurbani is all scientific and it tells you about this and that and all the science can be found in it. And that I don't find validated, except there are a few intriguing things here and there that we talked about.
The reference that are made sads about had they done it. Their purpose was not to, it wasn't.
That's the point, it's not about science.
Yeah, it's not a science laboratory. It's a spiritual laboratory.
The examples given to get a message across, that's most of the time.
Another one that's used many times in Gurbani, but clearly has nothing to do with real science, is that swans live on a diet of pearls and diamonds. Obviously, that's not true, right? But the point he's making is that those who are
Swan,
good
Hans and
looks,
Bagla. They're two
those
different.
who are
They look
sons,
alike, but they do.
they only go for good things. They don't get into
Bagla is
vices
like
and
stock.
bad things.
They're white. They're both white.
But stop. But that's
Crane.
Bagla is a bad
Crane.
example, right?
Bagla Pagat is
Yeah, the bad
derogatory, but
The-
Swan is
yeah,
good. So
yeah.
I don't.
So
Yeah, Gurmukh, Manmukh was there, the example.
Crane है ना, जरा एक लत खड़ा होता है, then grabs
Now, the Gurus didn't
the.
hate Baglas. Baglas are also nature in that
They are also-
But it's used as a metaphor because they stand on one foot and they are they're searching for fish. So it's used as a metaphor for the deceitful person. But it's just an example. It doesn't mean you should hate them or love swans. Swans look beautiful, and poets have talked about them. And there's historical poetry about their living on these. They pick and only go for the diamonds and the pearls, and they don't eat all the bugs and other junk in there. That means in the world you don't get involved in all the bad things. You just pick the good stuff,
But
spiritually
swans,
good stuff.
in actuality, the diet of the swans, do
It's
you
the
know what
same.
it is?
It's probably the same as other.
Exactly.
Other water
Probably
borne.
bugs also. You have to live on
They're
something.
probably more selective.
I know, my question is, are they? We don't know, right?
Yeah.
There's some good ones. They pair for life. So,
Yeah.
So the
Short
bug,
life, probably a little shorter. I'm just kidding.
So this is what we've been talking about. It does not require belief in miraculous phenomena, irrational dogma, or superstitions. You can believe in science and rationality at the same time be a devout Sikh. That's I think the main message I've been trying to. Because as a technologist myself, people who are focused on science can also be very skeptical and not believe anything, and you can do that. But you can also have a deep faith and believe everything Gurbani says without being in contradiction with science.
Is that true that people who are more scientific are less religious, generally?
I don't know.
It's not.
I don't know.
No, it all depends on their.
I think I see that a lot, like people
Well, certainly
who can
science-
follow any guru, any village, because they don't know even any scientific knowledge, they are more religious, even if the guru is cheated.
That's not religious, that's being
That's-
blind faith.
blind
That's not
faith.
They are being
religion.
distracted
Right,
from.
that's not religion in that.
Actually, in the West, where science has become more, people know more about science and technology, people are falling away from traditional religions, but there are far more younger people going into the New Age kind of religion, which is more spirituality. They're looking for things that are deeper. So maybe,
Okay, the new
maybe for
age
some
religion,
people,
is there a religion called?
no, it's a whole series of spirituality things that.
But then Sikhi was a new age religion for this time, and perhaps still is a new age religion.
For a few of us, it still is, but for lots
No,
of people, it's not.
if we go to the essence of Sikhi, it is a new age religion.
It's always been new, right?
Yeah, because if you look at the trappings and the rituals that have come with time, then of course it's gone back to where it was.
We are creating more and
Mera
more.
neat naya.
Yeah, creating more and more of that stuff. But yeah, if you, Gurbani is ever fresh, and those who follow it, for them it's Sahib Mera Neet. That's how it should be. So the point was, look to Gurbani for spiritual guidance and look to science for understanding nature. Don't mix those two. That's where the confusion comes when people try to find science in Gurbani or vice versa.
Try not to be too analytical or, look for deeper explanations and with support to science.
Not in support of science,
Not
but
in
in
support
deeper
of science,
explanation
yeah.
of real meaning.
I think we should still explore it, we shouldn't stop exploring it.
Yeah.
Exploring what?
Scientific answers to that.
What
Depends
is
on
the
how
next?
much time you want to invest in it versus exploring the depths of your own soul and walking on the path of self-realization.
Importance of girl science, they say, yeah, I can quote you one place Guru Arjan Dev Ji has said. He's talking about the atomic age 400 years ago. The Bani called Gatha. in the second Shabad there says Pramanu atom. Pramanu Prajant Akashe, Deep Lo Sikhandane, Gachen Nan Faren, Nanak Bina Sadhu Na Siddhate. Pramanu means using the atomic age, human might be able to Prajant means goes, Akashe means space. A man may be able to, using the atomic power, might be able to go to space. Pramanu Prajant Akashe, Deep Lo Sikhandane. Deep Lo means between planets, between Mars, Jupiter and all that. Using the atomic age, man may be able to go to all these places. Pramanu Prajant Akashe, Deep Lo Sikhandane. Sikhandane means between different continents also. Kehte Gachen Nan Parayan. How fast? Nan means eyes. Parayan means blink of an eye. As fast as you blink your eyes, man might be able to, using the atomic power, might be able to go to all these places as fast as you blink your eyes. We cannot go to India with blink of an eye. Still takes 24 hours to get there. But we are still not there. Science, what Guru Arjan Dev is talking about. But then you might be able to call this guy who invented all these things, he's a very successful man. My hats are off to the other people. But what Guru Arjan Dev Ji is saying after that, Nanak Bina Sadhu Na Siddhate. You have forgotten the purpose of life. What is the purpose of the life? Siddhate. Siddhate means success.
Yeah.
Body is दी गई सी पई परापत मानव देवरिया गोविंद मिलन की ये तेरी पई जे ए करके ते जे उन प्राप्त मिल के and he has using the atomic power to go all these things, then I will call him successful. But if he created these things and he did not merge into God, so he wasted his life.
पंचम पाठशाली बाणी है?
बाणी है, गाथा शब्द है क्या? गाथा बाणी है, ये जड़ी संस्कृत श्लोका तो बात आती है, संस्कृत श्लोका. So second शब्द on
Guru Granth
Sahib.
Now the interpretation that she's given of the final meaning I completely agree with, but the part about the atomic age and all that, that's just one person's interpretation. That's not what they would have interpreted in the past.
Could be.
I'm just trying to put it in terms of what current science is and reinterpreting it just to make it more meaningful.
क्योंकि बाणी जो हर वेले it's मेरा नींद ना.
The deep word doesn't mean planets, only it means islands or continents. But you know, you can interpret things different ways. You can take new science and try to reinterpret it and say now it fits. But it may or may not have meant that.
ये होएगा 1060 के आसपास. No, 1260.
Oh my God.
Right after.
It's a familiar one.
And right after the Sanskrit sloka. Sanskrit sloka के बाद गाथा बाणी शुरू होती है. गाथा दे के नाम में second sloka है. परमाणु प्रचंड आकाश.
You can also mean
How
that.
do you remember so much?
This is what this is the life. This for me, this is life. क्योंकि देखिए जे कोई मैं चीज जानती है, I want to find answer from Guru Granth Sahib, not from anywhere else.
But there another simple interpretation is.
मैं तो हैरान हो जाना माँ कि जितनी अच्छी साइंस और टेक्नोलॉजी पढ़ी है कि गुरु ग्रंथ साहब is so advanced.
You bringing Gavani research?
नहीं वो तो multiple है, you can search it right now in a second.
Yeah, we got back about 1260. 1250, 52 the शुरू होती है सेस स्लो so about 1259, 60 of the आसपास.
Do you have that? Why is it right?
That's it, JJ?
Yeah, that's all I had on slides. I was going to look for this line if you want.
You said that Parmanu will find it. Parmanu.
Just do Nanak bin Sadhu. That is easy.
परमाणु प्रजनन आकाश.
JJ, just do bin Sadhu. BNSDA.
Nanak bin Sadhu, is that how it goes?
No, ये शुरू होता है परमाणु प्रजनन
Doesn't matter
आकाश.
the beginning.
Parmanu.
Nanak bin
Sadhu.
बिन साधु न सिद्ध थे.
Yeah.
Let's just go back.
For research.
No, any.
Eco Rider.
बिहागड़ा.
1360.
There it is. What's the page number? Where?
1360.
1360.
Oh, not 12, 13. 1352, 1360 degree. Yeah, परमाणु प्रजनन आकाश.
Even if the
Deep low
So
second.
here this translation, even if the model could make himself as small as an atom and shoot through the skies in the blink of an eye. So it doesn't have to be expressed in terms of atomic age or atomic power. This is another simpler interpretation.
ये वाणी अथाह समुंदर है. It is interpreted somebody. It could be mine. It doesn't have to be everybody's.
But the key
Everybody
message,
का हर एक को किसी different meaning है.
but the key message was the final thing you said, saying that all kinds of powers
बिना साधु न सिद्ध थे.
won't be any use unless you get the spiritual That's the real message.
Even
The Holy Saint.
Deep low is Akase deep low is translated in different ways.
Yeah, that's one.
Can you send
See, there's an ocean. You can see it from San Francisco. You can see from Santa Cruz, and you can see from Daytona Beach. I mean, you will see different. Okay, it's upon. ऐसे करके गुरबानी नु समुंदर क्या है?
Yeah, but I would caution against trying to interpret things in terms of current science, because what we know today, we think is a state-of-the-art science, may itself to be proved to be incorrect 100 years from now. So if we say the Gurbani is teaching us things according to current science, even that may be wrong because things are different.
Because the current science right now is not absolute.
Right, exactly.
So it's
Based
going
upon
to actually-
our interpretation
Yeah,
की मस्कीन जी used to say कि जब जी साल मेरे अर्थ किते हैं 20 साल पहले आज मैं अर्थ करूँगा बिल्कुल डिफरेंट होगा
it also
so आज मैं जो दस रहे हैं वहाँ हो सकता है in 1 week from now I may something else I may say entirely different meaning इससे करके this is not the end the answer ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੇ ਕਨੇ interpretation ਕੀਤੀ है it's quite possible tomorrow I may say something different
But the important thing is not to claim that Gurbani is telling us a lot of science.
Right. We don't even feel the need, I suppose.
We
Not
should have
that-
the need for it, and that's going down a path that I see a lot of people doing it, but it doesn't really buy you anything and can be marketed.
But I like the way
It's
you
for your
closed it.
own information if you want to,
It's interesting.
get interest.
You know,
interested
what
in
it does
finding
is,
out
this
that.
kind of interpretation, it makes it contextual to our times. Just like Babaji referred to contextual phenomena that is going on. And that's the
Yeah,
merit.
that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with making that translation. I'm just questioning the leap to saying Gurbani is telling us all
Yeah.
science. Have to be careful about that.
Right.
Because that's not the main subject of spirituality. But some science happens to come out of it. That's great. You can
That is
use
it.
it for explaining, but that's not what it's about.
I have
Because
got
somebody
VG
else
said
can
now.
argue the opposite.
Yeah, the Virgin explanation that Sikhi, I have also heard American Sikhs talk about in exactly the same way. So obviously, one of the interpretation we I have.
But this is by one of them also, the one in here, which is different.
This.
Yeah.
Sanse Khalsa is not doing that.
Right. नहीं Sant सिंह खालसा ने तो यही लिखा है मेरा ख्याल.
That's what I just showed you.
Yeah.
अच्छा.
He didn't say anything about atomic power or anything else.
Oh,
He
he's
talked about flying into Akashic ethers. Whatever
अच्छा.
that is.
I remember so vividly कि उन्होंने
You
कुछ
take
ऐसा
this,
किया. Maybe I'm
if
wrong.
humans take this size
परमाणु
of
पर जान तो
atom,
उन्होंने क्या say something about an atom becoming an atom or something. like that.
He says that.
Okay.
That even if you reduce yourself to the size of an atom.
Okay. That's how the Americans explained it.
But that's how it is.
Okay, I see.
There is another Shabad in you probably remember, you remember all these Shabads so well, where Guru Nanak talks about all these different cities and powers and he said, if I have this, if I could fly in the sky, if I could have this mosque,
सिद्ध
this
सिद्ध हुआ
and that, and
सिद्ध हुआ रिद आँखां गुमत प्रगट होई जाए होए बैठा लोक राके पाओ मत देख भूला बिसरे मतलब कि ਇਹ ਮਿਰੇਕਲ ਹੋਣ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਨੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਮਿਰੇਕਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਆਈ ਮੇ ਫੋਰਗੇਟ ਯੂਜ਼ਿੰਗ ਦਿਸ ਇਹ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਇਸ ਰਾਗ ਦਾ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਮੋਤੀ ਦਾ ਮੰਦਰ ਉਸਰੇ ਰਤਨੀ ਦਾ ਹੋਏ ਜੜਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨੇ ਸੁਲਤਾਨ ਹੋਆ ਮੇਰ ਲਸ਼ਕਰ ਮਤਲਬ if I become a king that still I may forget you so ਇਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਰਿਧੀਆਂ ਸਿੱਧੀਆਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀਆਂ what he is saying that if I have these things and still I remember God is acceptable.
Yeah.
Moti the mandar usre je lekin all the riches a Sikh can have but as long as he remembers it. ਇਹਦੇ ਚ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪਰਮਾਣੂ ਪਰਜੰਤ ਆਕਾਸ਼ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ if I am successful merging with God and still I have all this atomic power it is acceptable. मतलब Sikhi the philosophy is
if some Baba is showing some riddhis and siddhis don't run after him. They are not important.
no this is not important no
that's the real point.
no any important है इसे कहते हैं रिद्ध सिद्ध अवरा साध
what important is that message that Baba is giving, right? That's more important.
ਅਸੀਂ ਬਾਬਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਹੈ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਐਵਰ ਲਿਵਿੰਗ ਗੁਰੂ ਹੈ I don't believe in any
If
other
somebody is showing these, it's probably it's a combination of Homer and
those are impressive ਅਸਲੀ ਤੇ ਕਰਾਮਾਤ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਗੁਰਜਨ ਸਿਰੇ ਆਤੇ ਨੇ ਸਵਾਰਿਆ ਮਤਲਬ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਖਾਲੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਹੀ ਲਵੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੰਮ ਦੇਖ ਲਵੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਦੇਖ ਲਵੋ ਇਹਨੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਚ ਭੇਜ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੋ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਰ ਕੁਝ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂਗਾ you don't need anything else ਇਹ ਰੀਅਲ ਕਰਾਮਾਤ ਇਹ ਹੈਗੀ
But which that miracle applies to us also. Jin Sirya Tene Savarya. I mean, what were we? Just, a speck. And look, kinna
हम रुलते फिरते कोई बात ना पूछता ਗੁਰ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਸੰਗ ਕੀੜੇ ਹਮ ਥਾਪੇ, ਅਸੀਂ ਕੀੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਸੀ।
ਸਾਡੀ ਕੁਆਲੀਫਿਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ, those are the gifts we have।
ਇਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਬਾਣੀ ਨੇ ਹੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇ ਕਿਨੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਉਹ ਕਰਾਮਤ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਹਾਲੇ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੀਏ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਰਾਮਤ ਕੈਨ ਅਪੀਅਰ। ਉਸ ਕਰਾਮਤ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੇਰਣਾ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਗਈ। That's a real miracle.
And that's the real transformation.
That's a real
also, right?
Yeah.
That's that.
वो ये तो कहते हैं बाणी गुरु है बाणी. So when you try to look at the science and बाणी, one simple, sometimes diagram is a little easier for 2 seconds.
You almost goes for a diagram.
I hope you guys don't mind. Just for a second.
No.
We just can't help.
I'll take location while we draw it.
अगर बंदा अच्छेगा
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਡਰਾ ਕਰੋ। ਮੈਂ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਣਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਰੈਫਰੈਂਸ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਪੂਰੀ ਹੋਈ ਕਰਾਮਾਤ ਤਨ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਹੋਰ ਜਿਨ ਸਿਰਿਆ ਤੇ ਸਵਾਰਿਆ
ਪੂਰੀ ਹੋਈ ਕਰਾਮਾਤ ਆਪ ਸਿਰਜਣ ਵਾਲੇ
ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਐਕਸਪਲੇਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਕੀ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ? ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ
ਦੇਖੋ ਹੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ
ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਹੀ ਇਜ਼ ਅ ਆਰਫਨ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਅੱਛਾ
ਹੈ ਹੀ ਨੈਵਰ ਵੈਂਟ ਟੂ ਸਕੂਲ। ਅੱਛਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਹੁਣ 30 ਰਾਗਾਂ 'ਚ ਬਾਣੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ 'ਚ। ਇੱਕ ਰਾਗ ਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਬੰਦਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ PhD ਲੈ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਇੰਨੇ ਐਕਸਪਰਟ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵਿਸ਼ਰਾਮ ਲਾਣੇ ਗਲਤ ਕਰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੋ। ਬੜੇ ਬੜੇ ਗਿਆਨੀ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖੇ ਨੇ ਹੁਕਮ ਲੈ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਹਰ ਰਾਗੀ ਤਿੱਥੇ ਹਰ ਬਿਤ ਸਹਾਈ, ਉਹ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਪੜ੍ਹਨਗੇ ਵਿਸ਼ਰਾਮ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਲਾਣੇ ਉਹ ਗਲਤ ਕਰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ। ਮਤਲਬ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿਸ਼ਰਾਮ ਲਾਣੇ ਔਖੇ ਨੇ, ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਮੈਂ ਰਾਗੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਐਸਾ ਪੜ੍ਹੇਗਾ ਕਿ ਵਿਸ਼ਰਾਮ ਲਗਾ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਐਸਾ ਲੱਗੇਗਾ। ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਅਣਗਿਣਤ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਦੇ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ never went to school and yet करामात दिखाई। एक करामात देखो मतलब कि रियल करामात है की है और कितना प्यार ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈਗਾ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਖਾਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਰੋਟੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਚਾਚੇ ਦਾ। ਹੁਣ ਅੱਜ ਹਰਮੰਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਜ਼ਾਰਾਂ ਲੋਕੀ ਬੈਠਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਲੰਗਰ ਖਾਣ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ 4 ਵਾਰੀ ਕਹੋ ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਗੁਰ, ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਗੁਰ, ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ।
It's my most favorite ਸ਼ਬਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ।
Sorry, Paji, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੁਝ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ। ਅੱਜ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਡਰਾ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ। That was okay. The side distraction.
Oh, you're doing eye cloud.
We just trying to correlate something. When we see बारिश पै रही होती है, ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਮੀਂਹ ਪੈ ਰਿਹਾ, we look up in the sky, we can see the cloud, so we can physically connect a drop of water to where it's coming from. ठीक है ना? That's physical science. When we see a sun, we see the sunlight go out there. We look towards the sun, we can see, okay, हाँ भी light ਉੱਥੋਂ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। But जिथे कनेक्ट कर रहे हैं महाराज बाबा जी बाणी गुरु है बाणी जी आंदी है राधे करो, that is coming through a different sphere which is the point we try to connect। जो बाबा जी बाणी कह रही है, so somehow we try to connect through here to there, क्योंकि बाणी ही इथों लेके जा सकती है to what I understand, क्योंकि ये चीज़ें उसे पहुंचने लगी हैं।
In other words, the physical reality is not.
The physical reality is different. The spiritual path, because we don't know exactly, कोई कहते हैं नाम बार somehow some place along the line बार करके कर दे somehow I don't know बाबा से कि किधर कनेक्शन बनना है थोड़ा बंदे यार तू लैंदा रहे क्योंकि नाम तो वह गल नहीं बननी। I don't know, there's not a limit of how much, but I guess some point in time it would connect some।
ਉਹਦੀ ਮਿਹਰ ਹੋ ਜਾਏਗੀ ਤਦ।
ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲ ਐਕਟੀਵਿਟੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤੇ when you challenge yourself with rock climbing ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ hiking ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ you condition yourself।
ਠੀਕ ਹੈ।
You condition your body ਕਿਉਂਕਿ if ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਐਕਸਰਸਾਈਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਤੇ you will not go reach the top। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਰੋਜ਼ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰੋਗੇ, ਪਹਿਲੇ 15 ਮਿੰਟ ਕਰੋਗੇ, ਫਿਰ ਆਧਾ ਘੰਟਾ ਕਰੋਗੇ, ਫਿਰ ਘੰਟਾ ਕਰੋਗੇ। So you at some point you will condition yourself so good that it will come naturally to you. It will be natural and you won't feel anything and you will reach the top. So this is something you don't see, but at the same time ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰੋਜ਼ ਬਾਣੀ recite ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ every day, it's somewhere it's being absorbed and somewhere it's conditioning you. It's conditioning you to go in that direction. At some point ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਕਿੰਨਾ experience ਹੈ, ਕਿੰਨੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰੋਗੇ, you will ultimately find the love of Bani and you will connect with that। you had kuch hai जिथे ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ।
करना is the starting point।
Yes।
पर मिलना उदी मेरे नाल है।
ਉਹ ਦੀ ਮੇਰ ਨਾਲ ਹੈ, ਉਸਦੀ blessing
ਜਦੋਂ
ਨਾਲ
ਬਖਸ਼
ਹੈ।
ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਦਦ ਕਨੈਕਟ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ। the other thing going back in the morning part, ਬਾਬਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਕਰਨਾ ਅੱਛਾ ਹੈ। ਸਵੇਰੇ body relax, thoughts relax, and you can when you try to understand थोड़े जिहा थोड़ा लग जाता है शामी करी राती करी बॉडी थकी पई है नींद आ रही है नींद सवेरे भी आती है ऐसी गल नहीं निकलती
ਪਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਨਾਲੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਿਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮਸ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮਨ ਤੇ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਤੇ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਸੋ ਯੋਰ ਮਾਈਂਡ ਇਜ਼ ਆਲਸੋ ਫੁੱਲ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਰਾਤ ਦੇ ਟਾਈਮ ਪਰ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉੱਠਦੇ ਹੋ ਯੂ نو ਦੈਟ ਇਜ਼ ਦ ਟਾਈਮ ਮੋਸਟ ਆਫ ਦ ਟਾਈਮ ਪੀਪਲ ਥਿੰਕ ਓ ਦੇ ਰਾਈਟਲੀ ਯੂ نو ਯੂ ਫੀਲਿੰਗ ਫਰੈਸ਼ your eyes are fresh you know breathing fresh so that actually helps every little process सारे करने देने पर करिए तो नहीं
somehow with Bhavi's blessing, if the connection can be made, then you got what we came for, I guess.
It's the medium you need, right?
Huh?
The medium to get to that is the body.
That's right. The rest only he knows what right, what wrong. No idea.